Hello friends, this is Worm, and we have a lot to go over, so let's not piddle around. Bungie basically dropped on us some of the upcoming changes to subclasses, and I wanted to talk about them, talk about whether they're good, bad, stuff like that. We're going to skip all the paragraph stuff, we're just going to talk about the changes here. But starting off with Stasis. Stasis has been in desperate need of a buff for a long time, so let's see what they're doing here. Frost Armor keyword added is something important I'd like to add up in here. Where was it? Oh, I'm sorry, never mind. Well, yeah, right here. 5 stacks of Frost Armor that last 9 seconds. Okay, so that's the default. But basically, Frost Armor, you are fortified by layers of durable stasis matter, reducing incoming damage. Frost Armor damage resistance grows stronger as you gain additional stacks. Remember, it stacks up to 5 times. Reduce damage from PvE combatants by 4.5% per stack, and from enemy players by 2% per stack. This is absolutely incredible because this means that we're going to get just a flat 22.5, if I'm not mistaken, 22.5% damage resistance for just kind of existing on stasis, you know, and we're going to talk about some of the changes to some of the stasis stuff. This is going to be incredibly easy, meaning if you rock tier 10 resilience, which is 30% damage resistance plus this 22.5% damage resistance, like you're looking at some really stacked damage resistance. And remind you, this is resistance. This is not overshield. This is just flat out all the damage that you're taking is just going to be less. But moving on, Whisper of Rhyme, has been reworked. It no longer grants a stasis shard overshield when collecting a stasis shard. Now it increased the maximum duration and count of your Frost Armor. Those values are up here. It's 13 seconds instead of 9, and you can build up to 8 stacks. So if I'm not mistaken, if my math here is correct, you're looking at, if you have 5 stacks of Frost Armor with Whisper of Rhyme on, you're looking at like 75% damage reduction at max resilience if it's multiplicative, which it should be multiplicative, if I'm not mistaken. That's incredible. That is an incredible, that's an incredible amount of damage resistance and a big deal. But moving on here, let's talk about some of the harvest aspects here. Added a new behavior. While Grim, Tectonic, and Glacial Harvest is equipped, Stasis Shards grant a small amount of health, so there's that healing that it had before, and it grants you a stack Frost Armor. So no longer are you getting healing, and then once you get to that, you know, that full health threshold, then you're going to start getting Overshield. Instead, you're going to get Frost Armor on top of the health that you are getting. I'm wondering what the health amount is going to be. Is it going to remain the same? Because right now it's very small. It's like 10 HP. I wonder if that's going to stay the same or if they're going to increase that at all. But like I said, mainly this Frost Armor, the damage resistance is massive. Large stasis shards from Grim Harvest grant more health and Frost Armor stacks. Okay, all harvest aspects now have a standardized cooldown when a large number of shards are created very quickly. Okay, perfectly fine. Tectonic Harvest now creates a stasis shard when shattering a frozen target in addition to shattering stasis crystals. This is a major buff to Titans. Obviously, you can, with Titan, I think Titan's the best at making stasis shards. You can just make about 1 billion stasis shards in a matter of, what, 15 seconds? It's crazy. This is going to make that even better. Let's see here. Moving on though, we're going to talk about some exotics here. Renewal Grasp. They've replaced the generic damage resistance with Frost Armor. And on entering your dust field, you and your allies gain a stack Frost Armor, and for every 0.9 seconds that you're in that dust field grenade, you're getting an additional stack of Frost Armor. Mind you, this is going to, like, this is already a very good exotic. This is going to be even better now. Because it's going to be giving you and your teammates that damage resistance. So this is one of the ways that you can actually get that damage resistance without having to use stasis. So if you're maybe like a Strand Titan with Banner of War and Woven Mail, stack it with this, stack it with max resilience, like you're looking at a lot of damage resistance. That sounds incredible. Ballador's Wrathweavers replace Stasis Shard Overshield with Frost Armor when you activate your Rift or use your Winter's Wrath Shatter attack. Pretty self-explanatory. Both of these great buffs. Pardon me. They've also added a new fragment here. Whisper of Chill. Stasis weapon final blows have a chance to create a stasis shard. This is going to be nice for players that don't really want to use one of the harvest aspects. I think all my stasis builds are built around the harvest aspect. So Whisper of Chill, nice little addition there. Whisper of Chains no longer grants passive damage resistance, when near a stasis crystal or frozen target. Instead, it grants a chance to create a stasis shard when defeating a target while you have one or more stack of frost armor. So this is one, it's kind of, I guess, a buff and a nerf at the same time. Obviously, beforehand, all you had to do is be standing close to a stasis crystal, but teammates could destroy it, and teammates did frequently destroy it. Now, when you have frost armor, you will now have chances to create stasis shards. Again, I think frost armor is going to be huge. In fact, I'm predicting that frost armor is probably going to get a nerf pretty soon after, especially if you can stack it with things like woven mail and stuff like that. Like it's a ridiculous amount of damage resistance that you can get when using frost armor. But neither here nor there. Whisper of Fractures now no longer increases melee regeneration while surrounded by enemies. Instead, it grants a stack of frost armor when you shatter any frozen target with a melee attack. This is very interesting, I guess. Punching an enemy that's frozen and shattering them will give you a stack of frost armor. I'll be honest, I didn't see Whisper of Fractures ever used really, and I still, even with this change, I still don't think it's going to be used very much. I don't know, we'll just kind of have to see. But moving on from there, Whisper of Torment. Grenade energy gains are no longer dependent on your current health value. Base grenade energy regeneration amounts per incoming damage event increase from 5 to 7%. So that's a big buff. Also, while you have frost armor, energy per damage event is increased from 7 to 12%. So from what I'm looking at here, like, first of all, this is a major buff to Whisper of Torment. Like, Whisper of Torment, I would say is a pretty decent fragment. It just got way better, especially if you have frost armor. 10 damage events is heck 9, basically 9 damage events are going to get you that grenade back, which is incredible, especially in a situation like where you're maybe up against an ogre or something that's just laser beaming you. That's pretty cool. Great change right there. Great buff. They have one more for stasis fragment, Whisper of Reversal. While you have frost armor, dealing or receiving physical melee, not projectile, damage slows your victim or attacker. This looks absolutely tremendous. As long as you have frost armor dealing melee damage. So I'm wondering if this is basically chill clip for your melee abilities. You punch an enemy while you have frost armor and you just keep punching them, and eventually you can freeze them, shatter them, which would pair nicely with this up here. I think that these two perks, fragments, Whisper of Fractures and Whisper of Reversals, gonna be really, really nice. Moving on though, Stasis Shatter, they've increased base PvE shatter damage from 200 to 400. That's huge, but it's not going to be quite as impactful, I think, as a lot of people think it's going to be, because they also fixed an issue where bosses auto shattering were being hit by 2 instances of shatter damage. So this is kind of, these two things just kind of like voided each other out, right? Like they've doubled the damage of it, but now you can't deal 2 instances of shatter damage. Now you're only dealing 1, so it's going to be the same damage, about the same damage. Now also fix an issue where players in an active super would show immune damage flyouts when automatically breaking out of a stasis freeze. So yeah, all good updates there. Moving on, Warlock Ice Flare Bolts increase maximum number of seekers created before going on cooldown from 5 to 7. This is just another buff. I really don't think Warlock needed a buff. I think Osmiomancy Warlock is insanely good, and they just buffed it even more. So that's fantastic. I'm excited to see that. Hunter Winter's Shroud, they've added a new behavior. Slowing targets briefly increases your class ability regeneration rate. Now, how much this is, we don't know, but I'm thinking that this could be pretty good, especially if obviously with Winter's Shroud, you dodge near an enemy, you slow them. That's getting your class ability back even faster. Bonuses reduced in PvP game modes, pretty self-explanatory. And it now grants PvE damage reduction while activated. So I think that's a great buff. Again, I like that it's slowing targets briefly increases your class ability regeneration rate, because you can use things like Chill Clip, things like Wicked Implement. You don't have to dodge near an enemy. You can use your melee ability as well. But moving on, Touch of Winter. For the Glacier Grenade, they've added an additional stasis crystal to the ring formation, increasing the count from 6 to 7. So that's a buff. Sounds pretty good. I don't know if it was really necessary, because Glacier Grenade with Touch of Winter was already in the cases that it was used, it was already very good. But it's a buff, so I'm not going to complain about it in the least. Glacier Grenade ring now forms over 0.27 seconds rather than instantly. So it seems like you're going to throw a grenade and it's going to have more crystals, but they're going to take just a brief moment before they fully form. I think that's an interesting change. I'd like to see how this works in game once we can get it. Cold Snap Grenade, they no longer chains an additional time while Touch of Winter is equipped. So beforehand, of course, Cold Snap Grenades go to a target, hit it, then it would go to another target. Now it doesn't do that. Instead, the Seekers duplicate when they freeze a target. Second and third Seeker chains now create medium and large stasis crystals respectively. This does seem like a buff, rather than every chain creating a small stasis crystal. This seems like a pretty sizable buff here, especially with Seekers now being duplicated as opposed to just going from one to another. I think that's pretty cool, because now you're going to get, you know, a second and third chain. So you go from 1 to 2, and then from those 2, 4, like 6, 7, you can get like 7 chains, something like that, which I think is pretty awesome. Silence and Squall here. Increased Squall maximum travel speed by 10%. Watch out in PvP because these things are going to be flying. Just, you know, pre-warning here. Those things are already pretty quick. You got to move away from them. Now you're going to have to even get away from even faster. Squall Storm now slows down when any target is within its area of effect to reduce instances where it can overshoot its target. I actually didn't know this was a thing. But yeah, I mean, that's a good change. Now you can't accidentally have your storm go like through a target and have to like loop back around, I guess, to hit them. But yeah, increased damage and slow tick rate versus PvE combatants by 40%. Wow, 40%, bringing its freeze time from approximately 0.8 seconds down to 0.5 seconds. So it's going to freeze targets even faster, and it's going to deal more damage inside PvE. That's, again, that's a very nice buff. This is what we've needed for stasis for so long. Moving on though to Titan. Shiver Strike, they've increased damage versus PvE combatants by 10%. They've also increased size of melee target search area cone by 50%. So now it should be easier to hit your Shiver Strike. When you activate it, it should lock onto a target very, very consistently. They've also increased maximum lunge, tracking angular speed from 7 degrees per second to 21 degrees per second. All around good buffs there. Glacial Quake now automatically begins sprinting when the player throttles forward. That's huge. That's something that I have that's been a complaint of mine about Stasis, Glacial Quake, the Stasis Titan Super for a long time. Cryoclasm, remove sprint time requirements. Cryoclasm now goes on cooldown for 4 seconds after one extended slide. So this is both a buff and a nerf. Of course, beforehand, you could shatter stasis crystals by just sliding, but it didn't count as that extended slide or that faster slide. It was just a normal slide. Then now they're changing it so that you will, as soon as you slide, it'll have that long slide. So you can literally sprint for half a second and be able to have that super slide, but then it goes on cooldown for 4 seconds. And the reason why I say this is a little bit of a nerf is because I think it took 1.5 or maybe it was 2.5 seconds to activate. So you could slide, sprint for 2.5 seconds, slide again. Now you have to wait 4 seconds between each slide, but it is balanced out by the fact that you don't have to sprint beforehand, which I think is pretty nice. Diamond Lance, increased thrown Diamond Lance detonation radius from 3 to 5 meters. That's good. Increased Diamond Lance slam detonation radius from 6.75 meters to 8 meters versus PvE combatants. It's interesting. I wonder how they're going to separate these two from PvE from PvP. Diamond Lance now shatters stasis crystals on direct impact. Yes, good. It's about time that happens. Reduce Diamond Lance pickup interaction from 0.2 to 0.1 seconds, matching strand tangles. That's awesome. And increase Diamond Lance pickup interaction radius from 0.7 meters to 3 meters, matching strand tangles. Yeah, that's really nice, because there were instances where I would literally run past a Diamond Lance trying to grab it, and I was just on the edge of that radius, so I'd hit it and it wouldn't quite pick it up. So very good changes all around to Diamond Lance and stuff. Really, all the stasis changes are fantastic. I mean, I'm very, very happy with where they're going with stasis. The whole Frost Armor thing seems incredible. I really think Frost Armor is going to potentially be overpowered, especially if you can pair it with something like Woven Mail. Like, that's going to be absolutely incredible. But let's move on here. Well of Radiance and Ward of Dawn. Well of Radiance now grants Radiant for 8 seconds when players exit the Well of Radiance area. So that sounds like a buff. They reduced player survivability while standing in the Well of Radiance aura. Okay, this is where the nerfs are coming. Reduced healing per second from 100 down to 50 points, matching restoration times 2. So no longer are you going to heal incredibly fast. It's now basically going to give you restoration times 2 as long as you're in the radius of the Well of Radiance. That is a pretty big nerf, especially in higher level content. Enemies can really clean you up in a well, and especially with, enemies can injure you pretty quickly. And now with this change right here, I think the well is going to be a much less safe option. They've also increased heal on cast from 40 to 300. So so it sounds to me like this is a buff to the actual Well of Radiance user. Like when you put the well down, so if you're critically injured and you put the well down, you're instantly going to pop back up to full health. They've reduced damage versus non-boss combatants from 40% down to 20%, which is a big deal. And they've reduced damage resistance from boss combatants from 40 down to 10%. So everything's going to be doing more damage. This is no longer going to be basically an invincible aura. You are going to have to play inside the well very safe. Let's keep going here though. Note damage resistance versus enemy players is unchanged. So this actually surprised me because one of the biggest complaints I have about Well of Radiance is that people inside that thing are basically invincible. I'm surprised they didn't change that at all. Increase maximum orbs of power from defeating targets while in your Well of Radiance aura from 4 to 5. So that's a buff. So some buffs and some nerfs. Overall nerfs to the Well of Radiance. This is going to play a big part. I mean, this isn't a small nerf. Like, this is a major nerf to the Well of Radiance. Like, your survivability has gone way down. So no longer, again, that 40% damage resistance, now going down to 20. Like, you're potentially still going to get like nuked by some enemies, especially with the healing rate going down too. That's a pretty big deal. Also, of course, you can't put a well at like a boss's feet and just go ham on him with a sword anymore. So I don't know. We'll have to see how this works. We'll have to see if this really swings the needle on Well of Radiance. I don't think it will, because Well of Radiance is still like, I mean, it still fits that role of being a super that you can activate a safe zone, so to speak, before damage, where your guardians can kind of rally around. It's just going to be less effective. Maybe instead of placing it in the middle of an arena, you might have to place it like off to the side where you have some shelter that you can get into. Ward of Dawn. Let's see here. Ward of Dawn, Armor of Light. They've removed Armor of Light Overshield. Ward of Dawn now immediately applies a full Void Overshield to the caster and allies that enter its dome. Okay, so Armor of Light is gone. The Overshield from Armor of Light is gone. Armor of Light now instead grants additional damage resistance to players inside the Ward of Dawn. 30% versus enemy players and 60% versus enemy combatants. Okay, so they're trying to basically make it more, fit its role more as being a safe haven. Of course, when you are inside the Ward of Dawn, you can take enough damage to break your Armor of Light Overshield, and then you're just as squishy as can be. This is very nice because now, again, it's that flat 60%. Like, you can have, you know, all the ads you want going in there. They're not going to break a shield. They're not going to kill you. Like, as you know, 60% damage resistance is very good. Again, will this stack with resilience and stuff? I would assume so, but we'll have to see. Effective health of players inside Ward of Dawn Dome remains roughly the same as it was before versus PvE combatants. Effective health of players inside the Ward of Dawn is significantly lower than it was before versus players in PvP and cannot be further increased by stacking Bastion barricades inside the ward to gain additional overshield layers. This is a major nerf. So if you're playing Trials and you're using Ward of Dawn as of next expansion is going to be that. I mean, that's, you're gonna be not squishy, but you're not gonna be a tank in there anymore. It's not a free win anymore. So keep that in mind. Allies near the Ward of Dawn Dome now have Void Overshield trickle on over time, similar to the volume behind a Bastion barricade. That's nice. That's a good buff. No longer provides weapons of light by default. Wow, that right there is the biggest buff. So now, Bubble, ooh, I don't know. I feel like they might have just killed Bubble by removing this. First of all, I don't see Bubble very often anyways. That's a big nerf. This behavior has been moved to the benefits of Helm of Saint 14. So now I guess Helm of Saint 14 is going to give weapons of light. Will it be 25% or will it be more? I hope it's more. Ward of Dawn caster can now generate additional orbs of power by defeating enemies with melee attacks in or near their Ward of Dawn dome. Is there a limit to how many orbs of power? Because if it's unlimited, that could be incredibly strong. Overall, man, it's difficult. Obviously, inside of things like Trials, Ward of Dawn is a menace. But for this, like inside of PvE, this is, I mean, this may have just killed the Ward of Dawn. I don't see players using Ward of Dawn all that often unless they reduce the cooldown or something. Like, I don't know if I like these changes because, again, it's not something I was using beforehand, and now it doesn't seem like I'm going to use it really at all. I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. But moving on, let's talk about arc subclasses. For the Hunter first, Arc Staff, the Heavy Palm Strike attacks and Heavy Air Slam blind enemies. That's awesome. That's a great change. I think that's a fantastic change. Disorienting Blows decrease base cooldown time from 100 seconds to 90 seconds, so a little bit of a buff to its cooldown. Seems pretty decent. 10 seconds is like 10%, not a whole lot, but it'll probably be noticeable. Tempest Strike added additional damage resistance versus PvE combatants when activated, lingering for a short duration after the attack. So now when you Tempest Strike, you're going to get damage resistance against PvE enemies. It's going to hang out, that damage resistance is going to like last for a little bit after the attack. We don't know how long this short duration is. So moving on though, we have the Warlock. Lightning Surge added additional damage resistance versus PvE combatants when activated, lingering for a short duration after the attack. Again, I think this is definitely needed. You know, one of the risky parts of using Lightning Surge is, of course, you have to go into the middle of a group of enemies, and sometimes the Lightning Surge doesn't kill all those enemies, and so you have to then run out of the area and oftentimes dying. Again, I want to know how much this damage resistance is. Is it 20, 30, 40? And it's a short duration. It doesn't look like you can extend it, so don't expect to be invincible. But it looks like you'll be able to go in, use Lightning Surge, and then get out of dodge before you die. Again, very nice buff, very quality of life buff for sure. Ball Lightning increased the final arming shape size by 30%, so it now has a bigger radius, I'm guessing. Or the final, I'm not sure what the final arming shape is, but that's a buff. So fix an issue where the arming shape was offset upwards higher than the maximum damage range of the projectile's detonation. So another buff, something that I didn't really see an issue with. This to me sounds like it was like basically you'd activate it and it would like, or you'd throw it and it would activate, but the enemies wouldn't take damage because it was just too tall. But yeah, Chain Lightning, this is the other Warlock melee attack, increased secondary chain projectiles base damage from 27 to 54, so they're doubling that, which I think is really strong. That's one of the weak things about Chain Lightning is its chaining effect really doesn't feel that strong. They've just doubled it, so hopefully that'll make it feel better. Moving on to Titan. Thunderclap added additional damage resistance versus PvE combatants when activated, lingering for short duration after the attack. So again, Thunderclap, you know, you sit there, you charge it. It looks like you're just getting free. Oh, here we go. Increase minimum damage versus Oh, no, sorry, that's for the damage. The damage resistance that it's talking about is whenever you're sitting there activating it, it takes like, what is it, one second, I think, to fully wind up and blast. While you're charging it up, you're going to get damage resistance, which I think is very good. This is one of the reasons why I don't frequently use Thunderclap, is because you have to commit to sitting there and you're literally a sitting duck. You get no damage resistance. And yes, it's a very powerful melee, but it's very difficult to use because you're sitting there. You're open to any kind of damage. So that damage resistance seems to be the same thing they're doing up here with Lightning Surge, as well as Tempest Strike. But also, they're increasing the minimum damage versus PvE combatants by 20%. So this is whenever you just tap it and it instantly activates. They're increasing that damage by 20%. They're increasing the maximum damage versus PvE combatants by 33%. So if you are fully charging your Thunderclap, it's going to do 33% more damage. That's a pretty healthy buff. Not going to lie, that's a really healthy buff. They've increased max damage versus enemy players by 14%. Again, I don't think this is going to make any difference. I don't see people sitting there charging up their Thunderclap completely. So maybe, I don't know. We'll have to see. Let's see here. It's been difficult. Oh, no, sorry. Knockout. There we go. Knockout. This is exciting stuff. Increased bonus damage granted to powered melee attacks to PvE combatants versus PvE combatants from 25 to 50%. So now your melee damage is going to be 50% more when Knockout is active. Not only that, but they reworked the healing behavior. No longer does it unstun health regeneration on melee defeats. Now, it instantly grants a chunk of healing that scales with the type of target defeated. So when you kill a player with a melee attack, instead of starting that health regeneration that can basically be stopped instantly by any damage you take, it's now going to give you a fat chunk of health. For players, it's 30 points. For minor combatants, it's 50 points. Major combatants, it's 75. And for champions and higher, it's 100 health points. This is something I have been waiting for them to do with Knockout forever. This is one of the reasons why I like to run triple heavy-handed, as well as recuperation. I think the one of the boots mod that allows you to not start health regeneration, but get a chunk of health when you damage or when you pick up an orb of power. They're basically adding that in by default, and I think this is a big deal because I can punch and kill 3 enemies faster. Again, I get 150 HP from those 3 kills faster than I can heal completely. So this is a big buff. This is a huge buff to Knockout. I absolutely love this. And if you wanted to, you can still use Insurmountable Skull Fort. I'm sure Insurmountable Skull Fort will still start health regeneration. So now you'll get a punch kill. It'll give you that chunk of health. You'll also get health regeneration. It'll grant your melee back. I think that next season we might start seeing Insurmountable Skull Forts come back onto the field. Touch of Thunder, Storm Grenade. They've increased the tracking travel speed when targeting PvE combatants by between 0.5 and 1 meters per second, increasing with a storm's lifetime. Okay, so it's just faster. This is good. Whenever Arc 3.0 first came out, Storm Grenades with Touch of Thunder was the meta because those storms moved really fast. Then they nerfed it and those storms move so slow. So now they're buffing up that speed a little bit again. That's just a nice quality of life thing. Touch of Thunder for the Lightning Grenade. It now applies Jolt after the first damage event rather than prior. Okay, so it now applies Jolt after its first shock. Perfect. Arc Grenades here. We've got some buff to Arc Grenades. Storm Grenade, they've increased damage versus PvE combatants by 20%, although Touch of Thunder's is unchanged. So Touch of Thunder not dealing as much damage as a regular Storm Grenade, but it does have that, that storm chasing effect, which you'll kind of have to weigh out. I'm sure there's environments where having that roaming storm is probably stronger than just having 20% more damage. Skip Grenade, they've increased damage versus PvE combatants by 15%. Shinobu's Vow users rejoice. Arc Bolt Grenade, they've increased damage versus PvE combatants up by 15% as well. All of these are all these buffs just seem really good. Like the Knockout buff especially seems fantastic, but also, with them adding the the damage resistance you get, that's really good. And then they're changing grenades too. Like I'm thinking that Arc is going to be like a featured modifier next season, but we'll have to see. They've changed some Arc fragments here. Spark of Recharge. The ability and regeneration bonus now persists until the player returns to full shields. This is a huge buff. So one of the things, Arc of Recharge is when your shields are broken, when you're critically wounded, basically, you get faster grenade and melee cooldown. But as soon as your shields start coming back, that effect is gone. Now it doesn't deactivate till you get to full health, which I think is fantastic. This is a great change. I think you're going to see a lot more usage of Spark of Recharge just because of that. Spark of Beacons now triggers on defeating targets with arc power ammo weapons while amplified. Okay, that's good. So Spark of Beacons is one where defeating targets when you are amplified with special ammo would grant a Ionic Trace. Now they're changing it so it works with power ammo weapons as well. Again, that's a huge buff. A huge buff. Sorry, this is something that I've wondered why did they opt to go with just special weapons? Why not include heavy weapons? Finally, Spark Frequency now grants 15 weapon stability on a powered melee hit in addition to its reload benefits. I don't really know how well this is gonna work. I think that most players, when they're activating their melee, it's probably within just punching distance. I don't see 15 stability being all that impactful, but it is nice that they're giving us a little bit more to it than just that reload speed. So that's pretty good. Moving on to solar subclasses. For the Hunter, the Lightweight Knife. Got some big changes here. Lightweight Knife now has 2 melee charges by default. They've increased the throw animation speed by 33% faster. They've reduced the suppression time between throws, so both knives can be thrown very quickly back to back. whenever they say this, I'm wondering if they can be thrown as fast as you can throw out 2 arcane needles, right? So basically, lightweight knife has 2 charges by default. You can throw them faster, and you can, the actual throw animation speed is faster, and you can throw them back to back quicker. This seems like a really interesting buff. I don't really see the viability in a whole lot of content. Also, they want to note here, the additional melee charge does not stack with the Ophidia Spathe. So if you use Ophidia Spathe with lightweight knife, it's not going to give you 3 melees. You're still going to have just 2. And then basically just going to explain that it's because of the unique recharge behavior. But with that being said, I think Ophidia Spathe still can be used with this. It'd be, you know, because you'll still get 2 melee charges every time you get just 1 charge up, if that makes sense. But I don't see a lot of people using lightweight knife. I'll be honest, I don't see it being used that much even after these changes. I mean, lightweight knife, it's not really all that like great by any means. Maybe you might see it more in PvP, depending on how fast this suppression time between throws reduction is. But we'll have to see. Knock them down. They've reduced internal cooldown on throwing knife refund from 1 second to 0.2 seconds. So now you can really throw those knives faster. In fact, I'm wondering if knock them down paired with lightweight knife is just going to have you like spamming an infinite number of knives. As long as you're getting kills, you can just spam that button. Similar to Strand Warlock and the Arcane Eaters. Wah, 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 wah. That would be really cool. I think that'd be a really, really fun addition if that change is working how I'm reading it here. Golden Gun, Marksman. They've reduced strength of orbs of powers created on precision hits as follows. When hitting non-boss enemies, reduction in strength from they've reduced the strength of the orbs of power from 75 to 0.5 times the normal super orb of power. When hitting bosses, they've reduced the strength from 0.75 to about 0.4 of a normal super orb of power. And when hitting boss enemies while Star Eater Scales is equipped, they've reduced strength from 0.75 to about 0.35 of a normal super orb of power. This is, I'm pretty sure this is in direct, like a direct counter to players utilizing Golden Gun during boss damage fights, because basically you could not chain infinite, but you could chain a lot of Golden Guns together in boss fights. Now it seems like you're not gonna be able to do that with these reductions here. I think it's interesting that they chose to do this. I mean, obviously it was a problem, but I figured they would have, you know, maybe done like a cooldown on the actual orbs of power or something like that, like the actual like creation of orbs of power. But instead you can still create the same amount of orbs of power, but now they're just going to have less of an effect. But I guess it also does make sense because Golden Gun is a ranged super. Like you don't have to put yourself in a risky position as say, you know, like something say like Strand Titan or, you know, something like that. But yeah, or Spectral Blades. So yeah, nerf to Golden Gun, nerf to the orbs of power, not a direct nerf to Golden Gun, but nerf to orbs of power. You're not going to be able to chain Golden Guns together as much. Moving on to Titan though, Consecration slam attack can now shatter stasis crystals. Good. It's about time. I've never understood why it doesn't explode a bunch of crystals all at once, but you know, ignitions generated by Consecration now deal 20% additional damage to PvE combatants. That is incredible. That's great. That really makes it an incredible melee attack. This paired with Pyrogale, gonna be super good, so super fun. Fix an issue where Consecration slam attack was sometimes unable to damage floating combatants while they were grounded. So if you had a shank that was say like frozen or something like that, and they were on the ground, you still wouldn't be able to damage them because I guess the game thought they were still in the air or something like that. Fix an issue where Consecration's intended PvE damage resistance was not being applied. So again, that's a buff. So now Consecration's PvE damage resistance is back. So now you're going to have more tankiness when using Consecration. I'm wondering if they're going to have a similar effect that they did with the arc stuff up there, where you have like you know, it lingers for a little bit. So you can run in, use Consecration, get damage resistance, run back to safety before that damage resistance runs out. Probably not, but we'll see. Hammer of Soul. They've increased projectile munition count while Soul Invictus is not equipped as follows. If the projectile detonates within 0.7 seconds of its lifetime, it now creates 4 shrapnel submunitions up from 3. Okay, so those shrapnel submunitions, those are just like additional explosion damage. So now there's going to be more explosion damage. Very good. If the projectile detonates after the first 0.7 seconds of its lifetime, it now creates 6 instead of 5. So they're turning this into, it seems like this is they want to make this more of like a range super. Like obviously it is a range super, but they want to make it where like, hey, you want to throw these hammers, let them soar for a little bit to create even more of those explosive damaging projectiles. Note, when Soul Invictus is equipped, only 3 shrapnel sub munitions are created regardless of flight time. I think this is the reason they did this, is because Soul Invictus creates sunspots, and those sunspots are dealing additional damage anyways. So I think that these are probably going to be about the same amount of damage. Like if you have Soul Invictus and it only creates 3, it's probably going to deal about the same amount of damage as as one of these changes up here. Shrapnel submunitions now deal additional damage when Soul Invictus is not equipped, with the damage increasing after the first 0.7 seconds of the projectile's lifetime. Oh, so it looks like they're trying to get people to stop using Soul Invictus so much. Like Soul Invictus is that's the best subclass fragment, sorry, on Hammer Titans or Solar Titans. And so it looks like they're trying to push people out of using that. And so that's why they're making these changes to Hammer of Soul. Consecration just got a buff, sorry. Hammer of Soul just got a buff. I'm thinking that Consecration Roaring Flames might be pretty strong next season. Just gonna throw that out there. Swarm Grenade, they've increased tracking shape size from 4 meters to 6 meters. Okay. They've increased linger duration from 7 to 8 seconds to 10 to 11 seconds. Okay. And they've increased damage versus PvE combats by 20%. Pretty good changes. Swarm Grenade, not very utilized in PvE just because the nature of it, it's not all that great. But I think that this could be good to set traps. Like if you know, like on Oryx, for example, you know that, say that ogre's about to spawn, but you've got a knight you got to kill or something like that. Like this could be an answer to that. This could be like almost like maybe like a different version of a trip mine. Something. But yeah, let's go on to Void. Hunter snare bomb changes. They've increased linger duration of smoke after detonation from 3 to 5 seconds. Oh my gosh, finally, one of the biggest complaints I have about Hunter is that the smoke bombs that you leave when they detonate, that smoke it doesn't last like at all. Like it goes away almost instantly, it feels like. Now they're increasing it to 5 seconds. That is a feels good moment. And it now applies small damage over time to enemies in the smoke, which increase in strength the longer they're in the smoke. I'm wondering how much damage this is going to be. I'm also wondering if this is going to scale with Khepri's Sting, because that could be a lot of damage right there. And remember, it weakens enemies as well. Trapper's Ambush, they've increased linger duration of the smoke bomb after detonation from 4.5 to 6 seconds. Again, another buff here to the duration. I am very, very happy to see that. It now applies snare bombs damage over time to enemies who are caught in its smoke. So, okay, let's finish reading this real quick. Fix an issue with Trapper's Ambush. Smoke effects could be obstructed by ground geometry. Okay, so now it seems like diving into a group of enemies with Trapper's Ambush might actually be a pretty strong getaway option. You know, obviously it turns you invisible, it suppresses the enemies, it weakens the enemies, it blinds them, gets them disoriented, stuff like that. But now it's dealing that damage over time. That sounds like it could be really, really strong. They're also changing Stylish Executioner so that Stylish Executioner's weaken effect can be applied by glaive melee attacks. Again, this is also a huge, huge deal for my glaive users, my glaive Stylish Execution users. Like that's incredible. I like that change a lot too. Let's move on to Titans here. Shield Throw. They've increased the maximum bounce count from 4 to 5. So the shields are going to be bouncing around more. Increased maximum lifetime from 3 to 4 seconds. So now they're going to be lasting longer. That might be menacing in the Crucible. Like I know that seeing a Shield Titan, Sentinel Titan throwing shields, like those shields bounce around a lot and they last forever. Now they're just making it even more annoying in the Crucible, but it is a super, so, they're now increasing its tracking shape size and strength after each bounce, increasing its ability to consistently find a new target. Wow. So these things I'm imagining these are going to be borderline unavoidable inside of PvP. So watch out for Sentinel Titans in PvP. Slightly increased gravity and decreased thrust speed with each bounce. Okay, so when it bounces, it's not going to bounce as high. Okay, so that's kind of the balancing factor to this. And they've increased damage versus PvE combatants by 20%. Okay, mind you, this is shield throw. This is in the super. This is not the shield toss melee ability. 1 second, please. Sorry. Okay, sorry about that, but yeah, what we were saying here with the shield throw, this is the super, this is not shield toss, the melee ability, so don't get the two confused, I guess. But moving on from there, offensive bulwark can now only extend the void overshield's timer to its normal maximum duration to prevent an issue where players could get into a bad timer state. Now regenerates a small portion of your active void overshield with each melee defeat. This is tremendous. So first of all, I guess you could say this is technically a slight nerf, because beforehand with offensive bulwark, as long as you get melee kills, you could stack your void overshield up to like 22 seconds, I think, or something like that. Now the max I can get is 10 without the fragment or 15 with the fragment, but every time you get a melee kill, it will give you a small percentage of void overshield back. This is huge. That is a big deal. I love that. I love that, and I've wanted this change to be a thing for a long time, and they finally did it. Moving on though to Warlock, Chaos Accelerant, Charge Magnetic Grenade. This is the handheld supernova. Increase maximum intensity of physics knockback impulse by 10%. So it's going to have that knockback effect. It's going to be 10% stronger. Increase damage versus PvE combatants by 20%. Great buff. It now passively decreases your magnetic grenade's cooldown by 10% while Chaos Accelerant is equipped. All right, so when you have Chaos Accelerant, your magnetic grenade is going to be 10% faster cooldown. Awesome. Pocket Singularity, they've increased detonation damage versus PvE combatants by about 50%. That's a pretty good deal. Finally, we're taking a look at Nova Bomb to improve its overall damage output without the need of a super boosting exotic. For Cataclysm Nova Bomb, oh, sorry, I'm reading that. I wasn't going to read that. Cataclysm Variant, they've increased the seeker count from 4 to 6, meaning it's going to do A, more damage, B, it's going to be harder to shoot down inside the Crucible. So just keep that in mind. Fix an issue where seekers could impact the environment on creation. This, oh my gosh, this bug is so frustrating. You would throw a Nova Bomb and it would detonate, and then the little seekers would just not exist. They would be gone. You wouldn't see them come out of it and then go towards the enemy. They just wouldn't be there because as soon as they were created, they would impact the environment and just detonate. So that's a great fix. Glad they fixed that. And then for the Vortex Nova Bomb, they've increased the linger duration from 7 seconds to 10 seconds. That's a major buff. They're very good. Very good. Fix an issue where the linger visual effects were shutting off early. Okay, I guess that's a nice little change too, especially in the Crucible. Like imagine you walk into a Nova, or you see a Nova Bomb land, and like, okay, like we're good to go, and then you walk into it and die after the fact. Last up is Strand, of course, and Strand, it's getting some nerfs. Threat of Warding, reduced woven mail duration on orb pickup from 10 seconds down to 5 seconds. This threat of Warding, of course, when you pick up orb power, it will give you woven mail. This is a pretty hefty nerf. It's down 50%. I'm wondering if you pick up multiple orbs of power, if it will stack up to 10, or if it will refresh your timer to 10, or if we're going to have the same kind of issue that we had with bad timers, like, for example, the restoration timer with Soul Invictus or Ember of Mercy or something, that will reset the timer down to 5. So if I have, say, Into the Fray, and, you know, that Tangle makes woven mail, and I get it, if I pick up an orb of power right as I'm getting 10 seconds of woven mail, will it drop it down to 5? I hope not, but we'll have to see. For the Hunter, the Ensnaring Slam, the detonation volume versus enemy players is now a cylinder with a 6.5 meter radius rather than a sphere with an 8 meter radius. This results in fewer instances of victims correctly attempting to counterplay by jumping, but being caught by the Ensnaring Slam detonation high up in the air. It says enemy players. I'm not sure about PvE, but basically, used to make a sphere, with a 8 meter radius. Now it does a cylinder that goes taller up into the air, so it's more predictable as to where enemies are going to get caught, which I think is pretty nice. Threaded Spike, they've reduced damage versus enemy players from 79 down to 70, so a nerf. Not really sure why they chose to do that. They did say up here that it's too potent against players, but I've never had an issue with Threaded Spike, so who knows. And then catching your Threaded Spike no longer breaks invisibility. This is directly in relationship to the Assassin's Cowl, so that's good. You can now catch your Threadling Spike, or your Threaded Spike, without breaking invis. Warlocks, Weaver's Call, they've added a new behavior. Defeating a target with strand damage now has a chance to generate a perched Threadling, with a higher chance of generation from defeating more powerful targets. This damage can be from any source, including other threadlings. This is a big deal because if you're using strand weapons, which you probably should be if you're using a strand subclass, you are going to be able to generate perch threadlings just out of thin air, just by like defeating targets with, say, different times, pulse rifle, strand pulse rifle, or relentless. Like that's pretty awesome. I like that change a lot. So I think that's a good change. Grapple, tangles, and melee. Strand Titans, you already know what's coming. Grapple tangles. They no longer fully refresh their duration when grappled too. It now increases their duration by a maximum of 5 seconds per grapple, reducing to a maximum of 1 second added after 5 consecutive grapples. Meaning that, somebody makes a grapple tangle in Crucible, for example, and then a bunch of people are constantly just grappling to it, like it'll literally last there for like minutes at a time. That's not going to happen anymore. Now, the more you grapple to it, it's not adding to a lot, like it's not extending its life. You're going to get to a point where you're going to grapple to it, and if you don't grapple to it again within 1 second, it's going to be gone. So also something to note here that's not listed in the bullet points: grapple melee will no longer be able to be used after firing your weapon. This is to all you people who want to, they say in here, actually, I'll read it word for word. This is primarily intended to reduce the number of difficult to understand grapple melee deaths in the Crucible. This is actually, in my opinion, this is directly related to the whole Strand Titan. So this is a nerf to Strand Titan, this right here. Moving on to Titan though, into the fray. They've reduced melee energy regeneration scalar from 4 times to 3 times in PvE activities. Again, not really. They said that their where is it at? Right here. I don't understand, as they said it's too high. They said the melee regeneration is a little bit too quick, so they're nerfing it. Don't really know why, but you know what? It's not awful, and it's also unchanged in PvE, so that's pretty good. Banner of War. This got some pretty substantial changes. Reduce the maximum timer from 30 seconds down to 24 seconds. So they've removed, they've reduced it by 20%. Pretty big deal. Glaive, melee, glaive melee, and super damage bonuses now have diminishing returns in, God, sorry, I can't talk. Melee, glaive melee, and super damage bonus now have diminishing returns with Syntheseps. Those are as followed. Melee bonuses decrease from 1.4 to 1.15. That's a big old nerf. Glaive melee bonuses decrease from 1.25 down to 1.125. Again, big nerf. And super bonuses are decreased from 1.4 down to 1.2. Another pretty sizable nerf. So, Syntheseps not going to be as deadly with Banner of War anymore. Sad day. I liked Banner of War Titan, but melee and glaive melee damage bonuses now have diminishing returns with Worm's God's Caress as well. I was just about to say maybe Worm Gods is good, but nope, it got the axe too. Melee bonuses decrease from 1.4 to 1.1 based on stack count. Glaive melee bonuses decrease from 1.4 down to 1.05 based on stack count. So basically, Banner of War is going to be less effective with Syntheseps and less effective with Worm God's Caress. Which again, that's a nerf to Banner Titan. So Banner Titan is looking like it's not going to be as strong. It's still going to be good. You're still going to have more melee damage, but it's not going to be nearly what it was. Finally, for Frenzied Blade, they've reduced the forward offset, for melee lunge target point from 0.4 to 0.18 meters. Forward offset to melee lunge target point. So I think this is supposed to reduce the amount of times that you go to lunge and you go through a target, which is really annoying. But yeah, that's everything in terms of the of the changes to all of our abilities here. Again, the big ones I want to point out: stasis. Wow, they really changed stasis a lot. Stasis, I think this is probably one of the biggest changes, one of the biggest balancing changes to subclasses since 3.0. This is stasis 4.0, I guess, if you want to call it. All right, this is technically, I guess, stasis 2.0. But yeah, the stasis changes are major. Frost armor, I'm going to call it right now. I think frost armor will end up being nerfed. If you can stack it with woven mail, max resilience, plus max, Whisper of Rhyme, and max stacks of frost armor, you're looking at a hefty amount of damage resistance, an insane amount of damage resistance, quite frankly. But I don't know. We'll just have to see. The other changes here, I really like the changes they made to Arc. Like, that's fantastic. Arc has been falling off for a long time. They've changed the support supers, Well of Radiance, Ward of Dawn. Ward of Dawn really got the axe here. Well of Radiance, I think, is still going to be useful, but not as useful. But yeah, that's kind of all I really want to talk about with this. Like, we had Solar, we had Void change, but I think they weren't nearly as big as the Stasis and the Arc changes. And of course, Strand just kind of got an axe all around. But yeah, that's it. Of course, let's talk about it in the comments. You know, all kinds of buffs, nerfs, stuff like that. Tell me what you think. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now, guys.